The Cincinnati Reds are poised for what I believe is going to be another playoff appearance this year, and hopefully a deep playoff run. Now, for those of you that have been subscribed to the channel, didn't I, say that I wasn't going to do the channel anymore, and it was just too much to manage with my other YouTube channel? Well, look, I had inspiration for a video, and I really want to make a video about the Reds. I've just been watching the first part of the MLB season so far, and so whenever you guys do see this, hey, I think this video is going to apply, and so hope you do enjoy it. I didn't think I'd be making a video back on this channel again, but the opportunity came up. I really wanted to make a baseball video, and here we are. Kind of got an inspiration for, a title and a thumbnail, and I figured, you know what, hey, let's make a quick video and talk about the Reds this year. So like I said, I don't know when you guys are going to be seeing this video, but as far as the start of the season for the Reds, it's been a pretty good start, right? I mean, you think about all the new guys they added in the offseason, right? From obviously the big acquisition was Eugenio Suárez, right? Obviously, played for the Cincinnati Reds before. An amazing power hitter, right? Hit 49 home runs last year. I know he kind of struggled the second half of the season once he got to the Seattle Mariners. But, the thing about Suárez is he's clutch, right? You saw in the World Baseball Classic. You saw it, in the third game of the season where Suárez hit a 3-run homer. The Reds took a 3-2 lead and ended up winning that game. That's why the Reds went out and got Suárez, right? You needed a guy like that can really give you a power bat in the middle of that lineup. And he kind of complements the middle of that lineup well, right? When you think about kind of that 1, 2, 3, and 4, you got TJ Friedl, Matt McLain, Elly De La Cruz, right? And I know Suárez has been batting 5th, right? And of course you got Sal Stewart, who has been absolutely electric. I mean, I could make a whole separate video about him if I wanted to, which I did, when I was kind of doing more baseball videos consistently last year. But Suárez fits in just perfectly, right? Of course, Spencer Steer usually follows him, and then you got like the 7 through 9, maybe it's like Key Brian Hayes, and you got maybe like Will Benson in there, right? So there's a lot of different guys on this roster, and I just think that their depth this year is a lot more profound. Not that they weren't deep last year, not that they didn't have a lot of guys that come in and make clutch plays, but I do really like the Cincinnati Reds depth this year. And so I'll just go over a few of those guys real quick. I guess now they have the lineup pulled up here. But yeah, obviously Will Benson, right? He's a guy that can hit for power, sometimes inconsistently, but he's a guy that can come up clutch, provides you a lot of energy, decent defensively in the outfield. He's definitely a good guy to have, seems like a great guy in the locker room, and I hope Will Benson can kind of, keep improving as a consistent power hitter, because he can really provide a lot of value in this Reds lineup if he can do that. And then you have Dane Myers. I mean, he got a walk-off hit, right at the beginning of the season. Like, how cool is that? You come in, you sign with a new team, right? The Reds trade for him in the offseason. Now you get a walk-off hit. You get inserted, in extra innings in a clutch situation. Terry Francona having trust in you and then going out there and actually executing, right? That's a great moment to have at the beginning of the season, let alone to introduce yourself to your new team. So props to Dane Myers, man. I mean, I've heard he's good defensively. I think that's what the Reds announcers were talking about with him, at least in that game. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think he's gonna be a great asset to this team. And I think, like I said, you have kind of two guys in Benson and Dane Myers, some good guys in the outfield, right, that are solid defenders, give you a lot of energy, right, have shown that they can come up in clutch moments, right, get clutch hits. So really cool to see for Dane Myers. And then you have Jose Trevino, right? Now, you could almost argue he could be a starting catcher, and I believe he was for New York for a little while. But, now obviously, right, backing up Tyler Stevenson, he's been the Reds starting catcher for a while now. But he obviously provides you some great depth. He got off to a hot start last year. I kind of sort of remember this a little bit more when John Sadik brought this up. And he had said that, Trevino, through the first month of last season, was batting like 340. Now, obviously, he cooled off, right? But Trevino is definitely a guy that can get going, and he's pretty much a perfect backup catcher, because not only, right, he's a vet in that locker room, and I'm sure he's been great for all these, younger guys over the last year, but he gives you that steady option at the catcher position. Now, if, let's say, Tyler Stevenson deals with injuries, right, and, is out of the lineup for a while, Jose Trevino can fill in, which he did last year, and he was great. So having two catchers like that on your roster, really, really valuable. And he's a guy that it seems like the starting pitchers on the Reds staff really like Brady Singer, for example, right? I remember, he started, right? It was the second or third game of the season. And, Reds announcers were talking about, how much, better Brady Singer threw, specifically when Jose Trevino, caught Brady Singer's game. So kind of interesting to note there, I would say, but just having two catchers as good as Stevenson and Trevino, it's not like they're going to wow you, right, with, batting 300, or it's not like they're going to wow you either with hitting 60 home runs like what Cal Raleigh did, but they're steady, right? They're steady, they're solid, right? They're going to get the job done, they're going to do it really well, and the Reds got two of those guys. Nathaniel Lowe, right? pretty solid. I was looking through his numbers, and he had a season where he bat 300. I believe it was the 2023 or 2024 season. Maybe 2022, actually. I don't know. You guys may have to correct me on that in the comments. But he had a season where he bat 300 for the Texas Rangers and hit 27 home runs. This is a guy that can really provide you some value. Not only value, like, he can start for you for sure. Now, obviously, like I said, Reds got a lot of depth, so he is not starting, right? I mean, you got Spencer Steer at first base. You know, the Reds announcers have talked about he was a Gold Glove finalist, right? So I think it's important to keep in mind in all of that. But gosh, having these 4 guys on your bench, Benson, Dane Myers, Jose Trevino, and Nathaniel Lowe, this roster is quite deep. And I haven't obviously gotten into the pitching. I mean, I'm super glad the Reds re-signed Pagan. You know, you still have Tony Santillan, who he throws some heat, right? Perfect setup man for Pagan. You got Sam Molback. You signed Pierce Johnson. Connor Phillips, man, he throws some nasty stuff. I mean, he has seriously got a deep bag of pitches, and the horizontal movement that he has, it's just ridiculous, man. I didn't know how anybody could get a hit off him, you know, when he's on with his pitching, when he can really nail in the strike zone well. So, and even if he's not throwing strikes, just that horizontal movement can really fool batters. So he's where you got to have, obviously, Graham Ashcraft. He was decent in the bullpen last year. I think he's going to continue that this year. And then the Reds also got Brock Burke from the Angels. He was a pretty solid reliever in 2025 as well. But yeah, and then, you know, obviously the core of this Reds lineup, pretty similar from last year. But I think the main 2 players that I think the Reds really want to see improve and that can elevate this lineup to another level are Matt McLain and Sal Stewart. Now, Sal Stewart got off to a very, very hot start to the season. He's clutch. He's confident, right? He gives this Reds team just a lot of life and personality. And then Matt McLain, right? This is now his 2nd year coming off that shoulder injury. And, man, he looked great in spring training. I believe he might have bat either just over 500 or just under 500 for spring training, which is just unbelievable. I know spring training is spring training, but regardless, that was, you know, pretty solid sample size. And McLain, like I said, he's just really improved. Always a good, you know, defender. I think at second base, and, you know, I believe Terry Francona had always commented that, you know, he's a good base runner as well. So now for him, it's just about getting that hitting going. And I think so far, at least from what I've seen with him, he's definitely showing very good plate discipline, which I don't feel like I saw from him last year at times. He definitely struck out a lot. So I feel like that's definitely been an improvement in his game. And then, yeah, like I said, I already talked about Sal Stewart a little bit, but I'm pretty confident in this Reds team, and I think they're going to shock a lot of people, and I think they're going very under the radar. I mean, when you think of, you know, the National League, right, you obviously think the Dodgers and the Phillies, and, you know, obviously the Mets, you know, they got like Bo Bichette, and they got Marcus Semien, right, they got all these guys in the offseason, and even, you know, the Pirates improve in the Reds division, right, obviously the Cubs, they got Alex Bregman, they're still going to be good, the Brewers are still the Brewers, right. I know there's a lot of good teams in the National League, but I think the Reds are being seriously slept on. I think people got to consider them a little bit more. Now, they're not going to wow you with guys like Philly's got Schwarber and Bryce Harper, right? The Dodgers obviously got like Ohtani and Kyle Tucker and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. And, you know, there's plenty of, like I said, there's plenty of other players and teams that, you know, I could talk about. But the Reds are being seriously slept on. I mean, I would really... I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to be a lock for a playoffs just yet. We got to see how the season goes, right? The National League, you know, is very, very deep. But I think they're being slept on in the sense that if this team is fully healthy and the hitting is clicking, this team is probably going to win the NL Central, and they're probably going to be a top contender to win the National League. Now, are they going to get past the Dodgers and the Phillies and some of these other teams? Well, that remains to be seen, but I think they're in a better position this year than last year to actually make a run and not just get, you know, 83 wins and sneak in the playoffs at the end of the season, but actually get like closer to 90 wins and really make a run at it, right? So, me personally, maybe I'm biased because I'm a Reds fan, but I'm pretty confident in this team. I like this roster, so let me know what your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.